right, so here's our demo on colorful skin. I'm kind of creating an amalgamation of a few of your different searches because 3 of you need different colored skin demos and I'd only want to do one. So we're going to begin by using some purples or blues depending on what your color palette is, but choose your color that is your coolest and your darkest. And we're going to use that to start blocking in our shadows. I do recommend looking at a research image for the actual shape, the facial structure of the shape, so that you can pick these shadows and lay them in. The only thing you're going to be doing is changing what color they are. So as we're going, just blocking this in with the purple. Right now they're a little bit all the same color. I do have a bit of medium in my paint mixed in. As you can see, it's got translucency. I'm trying to swipe over on the left here so you can always see it. And just carving in the beginnings of our shapes. As you can see, I also pre-drew a lot of the rounds and the circles and the highlights, so I've kind of built in a color blocking system. The way this research image looks, the purple on the right-hand side is purples and blues on the right-hand side, and the left-hand side has yet more yellows, pinks, and oranges. But you can switch those out for whatever color you want. The thing that's helpful is that yellow turning into orange heads into purple, though that has red in it, so that's like a nice range you can get into. You need a bridging color to get from yellow into purple or from orange into blue so that you're not mixing to brown in the middle. So by switching it over to orange, we can then mix into pinks and reds and then hit purple. So I've mixed a little bit of medium and some yellowy orange together. You can see where I blot it out on the side, and we're just glazing that whole side of the face and all of the areas that have bounce light on them that are in the yellow. I'm going to use the orange and darken it up in a couple different areas to help us create that bridge. If you're using blues and greens and reds, it's a lot easier to switch from blue to red. You can mix purple in the middle. You can do green to blue to red, but it's sort of the same issue where you don't want to be putting green directly over your reds and vice versa. You can use pinks and blues and all sorts of different colors to kind of bridge between them. That blue seems very bright. I'm going to get a calmer one. Better. And a little bit of medium so it's transparent. And we're going to glaze this whole side with the blues. So this side we have purple shadows with a blue glaze. Other side we have purple shadows with a yellow glaze, yellow-orange. I'm not worrying too much about keeping my lights bright right now. I'm going to be able to go through and add those back in, and I'm working a little translucently, partially so I can still see the drawing underneath and partially because it's very controlled. I'm now mixing up a bit of white into that blue, so I'm starting to carve out with more opacity, more in a littler brush, so more specificity, the highlight and mid-tone areas. Because there's white in it, this whole section's going to be more opaque now. Kind of bridging the gap between that purple into the mid-tones and the highlights. If you're using a different color for that, that could be the color you lay down as your base. If it's less of a color shift between 2 different colors and you're doing a colorful skin tone, lay down your base tone and then build up on top of it. As long as they're not completely opposite colors, that's another way to approach it. Going through and finagling a few shadows, I did add a little bit of white to my purple, so this one's more opaque and not as dark as the shadow we were using before, and a little bit of red, so it's a little warmer. Still using that little brush to lay it in exactly the places that I want. Mixing up a little bit of Bordeaux red, which is kind of like a maroony color, because that will mix really nicely with our purple. That's like maroon to purple is already really close together, and using that to warm up and deepen a few of our shadows. That's going to feel nice and dark by comparison. It will also help us bridge into those more yellow places so that the shadows that are mixing with yellow are a little bit more leaning maroony purple, plum purple than blue, versus the shadows over here are a little colder. Except for on this cheekbone where it's bounced because it bridged across and over the nose where we blocked on one side and then we're getting it bounced on the other. I know it looks kind of crazy right now, but don't worry. So my mid-tones, I'm sort of using these like warm purples and cool blues for my mids, deep purples for the shadows, and the highlight is going to be the yellows. That's how I'm thinking about this. So now I'm mixing a bit of yellow, a bit of orange, and white so that I've got an opaque version of that glazing. And I'm going to use that to start blocking in the shapes we sort of glazed before, but now it's more opaque, and I've put just a tiny amount of medium in it just to make it workable, but it's not translucent at all. A brighter yellow, and just a tiny amount of burnt sienna to make something just a touch more neutral, and then quite a bit of white. A little bit of medium. So this is a little translucent, and I can use this to kind of bridge the gap from that darker orange into some of the more purpley areas I created. And to put in some of the highlights around the eye socket on the far side. Mixing white and medium, we're going to use this to bring our highlights forward and to also unify some areas here. So right now everything's very similar in value. We've just got a couple dark purple lines, but similar in value. So we're going to use this to start unifying some of the areas where the reflection of the face is coming off as more white overall. So these are your highlights, right? I have a little tiny amount of either blue or yellow in this. That would be fine. I think I'm working with it in pure white in this section. So it's just lightening what's underneath it, but acknowledging that white does cool what's underneath it. So you can see as it goes over some of those yellows and oranges that they kind of get muddy. It does cool them down and makes them a little quieter. Which is okay. We can always brighten them back up. But we've got sort of the foundation to be painting on top of now. So you can see how that kind of brought together more of our patchy lights and sort of unified them underneath one highlight. So we're defining the shape of the skull with that. We're going to now use a little bit of dark. I've mixed purple with a dark brown to create something that feels like this world but still reads as darker. I don't like black. It is always amazing to me when you put in the eyes how much better paintings look. I'm also defining with a very small smudge of it and a little translucency. So if I know I want to use a darker color, but I want to use it somewhere and not have it feel as dark, if you add a bit of medium to it, now it's translucent, it's not going to have the same power. I'm flicking up the edge to emulate the eyelashes and the eyeliner. And then I'm blocking in a few extra of our shadows and our detailed shadows, right? So that that color jumps around the page. It's not just in one place. That would make that very contrasty compared to the rest of the painting. So I'm using that color on like our top 5 shadows. Also going to use it to start blocking in some of the shapes of the hair just for fun. And how the hair comes from behind the face, it's shadowed, but then as it hits the light, it's got a glow, so we're only going to do a few on this side. Put some shadow into the whites of the eye so that it doesn't look too intense. Add our highlights in, and now we're going to go through and add just a couple more of our brighter highlights. We're being a little bit painterly with the application of these. Letting them stand out. It's an exposed brush stroke, but it helps us define the shape of the face, right? There's a bit of glazing medium in my white still. I'm using that one, so it's not so poppy. I'm only using bright pure paint on things I want to have really high highlights. So the tip of the nose, the dots in the eyes. Start darkening and regaining our shape. As we've painted, we've gotten a little away from the drawing, so we're going to add some more specificity back in. We lost some of our shadows, so we're going to softly blend those back in. A couple areas here. Bringing some of that warmer purple tone that we were using in again. It got covered up a little bit. So I went ahead and did a background, and now to put that glowy hair behind it, you paint the background first, and then I'm going to go through and add my white highlights, knowing that when I paint over this with a nice bright yellow, it's going to catch on the white. So this is one way to attack doing curly hair, is to do these layers of texture and block them in and just keep a really organic feel, and then the outside silhouette of it as well as the texture within it, and how if you create a few little like flyaway hairs and a few little different strokes across the top or on the edges, there's an organic feeling to curly hair. You don't want it to get too precious or too perfect. All right, so that is how I would approach doing this. I hope that helps. Here's our kind of finished quick study, and good luck.